All right. Well, thanks everyone for getting on this morning. So just as a reminder, this is a Q&A and open portal support session for the state agency proposals. City and county application period is currently closed. So any city and county representatives that may be on are welcome to listen in, but we won't be addressing questions related to the process right now. All those applications are currently under review. So for anyone not familiar, I'm Charlie Linticum. I am the Director of Operations for the Opioid Abatement Authority. Means I'm over all of the grant processes as well as the outreach and technical support to cities, counties, and state agencies. And before we get into the general kind of Q&A and tech support stuff, I have a couple things just want to pull up and walk through based on some questions that we have been receiving, as well as some, being that this is the first year that we have utilized our grants portal for submission of these state agency proposals. Sorry, I lost my screen. Can you all see the document? Great, thank you. So being that this is the first year that we have utilized our new online grants portal for submission of state agency proposals, wanted to make sure that we had some extra guidance on kind of best practices to get everything into the system properly. So, the biggest change from last year to this year is that instead of just filling out a proposal and a budget workbook and sending those in via email, things have to be submitted through the OAA's grants portal. And you can access that through, sorry, the grants info page on OAA's website. There's a lot of information here, a quick start guide, the user guide. The quick start guide includes how to get registered. If your state agency is not yet registered, then there is a process to designate a primary user that needs to be completed. And then once that primary user is designated, you can have up to 4 additional secondary users in the system. As a note, your executives do not have to have access to the system in order to be able to sign reports and applications. That is be handled through an e-signature process that happens outside of the system. We've also got, if you see here, training for state webinars for state agencies. There is if any of you were not able to attend, there was a state agency portal training done on 3.5 that goes through a lot of the basics of how to enter things. And also the slide deck is here, and then you can click this large text link here to get to the portal. And I will also put the link to, actually, Sharika, if you wouldn't mind, could you put the link to the state agency portal for 3.5 into the chat for everyone so that they have that. Okay, so moving along, and at any time, if you have any questions working on your proposals, if you have like an OAA liaison who you've been working with who's reached out to you, feel free to reach out to them. For those with existing awards, if you have a new award or you're not sure who your liaison is, please feel free to email info@voaa.us and we'll get right to assisting you. So all proposals must be submitted through the portal, and they're due by the end of the day, May 27th, 2025. That's the day after Memorial Day. You have up until 11:59 to submit them in the portal, and then the portal will close and not allow proposals to come through. One thing we want to make sure as we move into this kind of slightly different process for submitting is when we talk about a project proposal, that's each individual project that you have. So an agency can have as many projects proposals for projects as they desire and they are approved to submit to the OAA. But all of those project proposals have to come up and be priority ranked by leadership and signed by agency leadership. And you can only submit one agency proposal. So I think there's been a little confusion in terminology, and in a little bit we'll go into the portal. Matt will pull that up so you can see how to create the. It's kind of like, if you think of a proposal kind of like an application, you have to create like a proposal application for each project, and then there's a process in the system that will that'll basically create what you may have known as that summary of the proposal before that'll allow you to put in the rankings and then have something to go to your executive for signature. If you have a current active award, you must submit a renewal proposal and remain in compliance to continue that award into the next performance period, whether funds are needed in the next performance period or not. Our grants committee approves all projects and all awards, and they're only awarded for 1 year at a time. And so if a project needs to be continued, whether it's just an extension or performance period, or there's carry forward, or any of those types of things, that needs to come back through and go through our renewal process. And your agency proposal may contain both renewals that also have amendments, as well as new projects. So an agency may only submit one agency proposal, but the proposal may include multiple projects. If the agency has separate projects, they have to have separate project proposals in the portal. Each project's going to have its own budget, objectives, performance measures. Agency leadership must sign. And if you are an executive branch agency, you should have received some instructions from the governor's office that would have come down to your agency, I believe, through your secretary's office. That is the way it has happened in the past couple of years. And there are some additional steps for the stuff to be reviewed, I believe, by the governor's office that goes through the Secretary of Health and Human Resources. And that all has to be done before anything's finalized and submitted to the OAA. If we get a proposal that has not been approved for an executive branch agency that's not been approved by them, we will not be able to consider it. So required fields. All required fields in the proposal must be completed for the proposal to be considered complete and be up for review and consideration for award. This includes items such as long-term sustainability objectives, performance measures, year-to-date expenditures, and etc. That means putting in something to create, to do an RFP to try to figure these things out. If that's something you're thinking about, you need to reach out to us to determine what kind of, sounds more like a planning grant that you're looking, or a planning award that you're looking for, than an actual project. And would recommend you discuss that with us ahead of time to see if that is something that would make sense appropriately for us to fund. Otherwise, we only fund projects that are kind of ready to go, that have those elements already determined. So under contacts, there's a number of places when you go through the process for the proposal where you'll be able to enter a contact for the related to the agency, related to the proposal. There, all of your historical information from the previous two rounds of proposals has been loaded into the system. And do that, both Matt and Sharika, who are on the call here, did a lot of work to get all your stuff in there as best as we could make it fit. And there is an OAA administrative contact you may see populate, because that's what we use to move things through the historical data loading process. But that is not a real contact that's going to do anything for you. So you need to make sure that's switched over to someone in your agency. Otherwise, any emails or anything that's going on with it, it won't go where it needs to get completed. Renewal and amendment proposals. There are text box fields that may include some historical data that will load automatically in there. Anything that loads like that outside of, in the financial side, the previous, the current year's award can be modified. And you make sure you review each of the questions and the data that's populated, because the question may be a little different on a renewal/amendment than it is on a new, such as in a new project, your first narrative box is just the project proposal. During a renewal, we're asking for an update on the status of the project, not just a proposal narrative. Performance measures. When we're entering the renewal proposals, there should be a kind of like year-to-date progress on the measures achieved based on what was selected. That should basically be whatever you have achieved at the date and time in which you're entering the proposal. We know it's not a full year. We just want to see what kind of progress has been made. And if there hasn't been able to be much progress made, there's places to put comments about why, whether it's delays in getting MOUs completed or funding transferred, delays in hiring a position or getting a contract executed, any of those things. It's just kind of a test so we can understand where the project is as part of the process. And we do have additional guidance related to our performance measures here. Some state agencies are using performance measures that are kind of outside of our regular prescribed ones because of the nature of their project. There is an easy space to manage those in the portal now that we didn't have in the workbook prior. Proposal budget guidance. So in order of entering budget information, so the information is going to go in this order. You'll have a personnel expenditure screen, you'll have an operating/capital expenditure screen, and then you'll have a budget overview screen, which would include any matching funds and the OAA funding request. The portal will not allow you to go past this budget overview screen unless everything reconciles. And one of the things we'll talk about carry forward in a minute, if you have carry forward funds going from the current performance period that you want to request to carry into the next performance period, those have to be accounted for properly to be included. So if you run into issues on that, please let us know. Also, if you see something that looks like it may be an issue with the amount that is showing for your current year award, please let us know. There have been some errors we've had to correct on our side from historical data entry, as well as some issues we've had to work with our vendor on. And because of the timely nature of these proposals, anything that our vendor needs to be working on, we'll be putting up as their top priority to get resolved so you all can get back in there and do what you need to. Personnel expenses, the personnel section, this may be a change for some of your proposals, should only include direct employees, salary and or wage of the agency. If the employees are like contractors or they're coming through like a subrecipient, that goes to the operations in the operating expenses section. So should only, if there's any employees there, it should only be ones that are directly working for the, excuse me, the agency. Operating expenses, so any kind of direct operating expenses, and any of your subrecipients, vendors, contractors, they should each have kind of their own line item. So if you have a grant that is wholly going to a subrecipient, and you have an agreement with that subrecipient about how everything's going to be put together and how everything's going to be done and what the details of how they're going to use the funds are, then you would have one line in operations that would name the subrecipient and show the amount of that item. And then we would expect you to attach a copy of that agreement so that we can see the details of the budget and how it's going to be spent. And if it's a new project, something that's not in process, then whatever, it can be kind of in a draft situation, and then we can, if the project is awarded, we can get the final version after that. Capital expenses. So most state agency proposals do not include capital. I don't know that we've funded any thus far. But this is really designed to be for large scale things like the purchase and renovation of a facility or the purchase of a vehicle or architectural and engineering costs. If you have a vehicle or a property that's being leased as part of your operation, that's an operating expense. I also consider things like technology, laptops and cell phones and things like that because they have such a shorter lifespan than like a building or a vehicle, that those would be operating expenses as well. If you have anything you think might go into capital, just reach out and let us know. We can help you determine if it belongs there or not. So, down to renewals and amendments, carry forward requests. We do understand that anything you're providing to us at this point is an estimate. There will be a true up process that will go through after the end of the performance period, somewhere maybe mid to late October, maybe a little bit later. We're kind of working on trying to give you all some more flexibility around the time with that. That'll help us kind of reconcile any differences between the estimates you provide in this proposal and where you actually end up. So it's just a swag or a best guess at this point. If you're requesting an increase in funding and you're requesting carry forward of the 24-25 award amount, be sure to account for the carry forward amount in reconciling the budget field. So make sure your expenses include how you're in 26, how you're going to spend the additional money that you're requesting as well as the carry forward amount. Otherwise, your carry forward amount may debit your overall request and you could end up not having enough funds to meet your expenses. Yep, if the carry forward amount is requested, it will need to be added to the 25 and 26 funding request. And if it's to be used for a specific expense, that also needs to be a line item. So if you're going to do something that's one time request to use for your carry forward, that should go in as its own line item. If you have if you're trying to purchase something like I know VDH has some awards for naloxone, and it's like, hey, we've got an order of naloxone and it's supposed to come in May 15th, but something happens with shipping and it doesn't get in until like June 28th, and there isn't enough time to get it paid for until the next performance period, then we need to make sure that the funds and the expense move into move into the next performance period. Out years, funding sources, revenue, and expenses for any out years must be balanced in order to advance the project proposal. We know out years are potentially estimates, and they certainly aren't guaranteed for renewal, but they do help us understand, especially with any new proposals, what you're looking at over the time frame of the proposal. We don't want to potentially approve something that we could afford in 1 year, but has a large jump up to be sustainable in the out years that our budget would not be able to support. And expended encumbered, this column is required for all renewals and amendments, even if the amount is zero, that it should reflect year-to-date amounts based on when the data is entered into the project proposal. Again, this creates kind of your best guess. This is where you are, and so that we know how much progress you've been able to make. Almost done with budget. And by the way, I should have mentioned before, after we get done with this, if there's any other questions that come up that we want to add to this guide, we will do that, and then it'll get posted in the next day or two on our website, and I'll do a news blast through our email list to let you all know that it's out there so you can have it for review. Revising items from one budget category to the other. So if you have something that's sitting like in personnel that it's actually like an operating cost for like a contractor or a subrecipient employee, make sure that you're going to have to maintain the awarded and expended amounts for the current fiscal year on that original approved line item, and then update that line item for the future years to be zero, and then enter the updated expense amount in the proper category. So it might require you to add a new expense line item. So personnel line item for a program coordinator that works for a subrecipient, enter the expended year-to-date amounts, the current line item under personnel, change the 25-26 and the out years to 0 under personnel, then add a line under operating expenses, program coordinator for subrecipient, and then enter the requested amounts for 25-26 and any out years there. And this, so then resources, do make sure you're looking at the proposal instruction screen. There's a lot of material out there for people to read and digest that we've tried to help kind of, organize some of this process so that you can think through it and work through it. I'm sure we haven't answered all questions through that, but this will help you ensure you have all the information and documentation necessary to complete the proposal. We also have links to the user guide, there's state agency training from last month, and then there's the RFP, the cycle dates, the terms and conditions, the MOU guidance, and the performance measures document, all also linked in here. And as mentioned before, happy to help with any questions. Before we go to questions, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and ask Matt to bring his screen up so he can show two specific things we've had a few questions on, one of which is making sure that how you create multiple project proposals in the system, and then how do those project proposals get kind of rolled up into what was that, like, something, what is the summary of proposal that becomes the agency proposal, where you rank them and and they get signed by the agency executive. So take it away, Matt.
Okay, so this is the dashboard. You can see this is our test account. This is specifically for state agency testing that we have. We have one project already in our in progress. You can see it's under the draft status. So that one's already been created. If I need to create another one, I will just go over here. Let me zoom in just a tad to grants management. And I will go to the state agency grant 2026 and click apply. Now, if the one I'm doing is a new one, I can click a little new radial here. If I am renewing one, I can click renew, click this drop down, and you may have to scroll down a bit to see the drop down menu, but your projects that are available for renewal should show up here. If you do have a project that should be in renewal, but you do not see it, please reach out to us at info@voaa.us, and we are happy to get that fixed for you. But for now, since I don't have any ready, I'll just click new and then start. And then you can begin through that whole application process. So let me go back to the dashboard here. And you'll see this is the one we had earlier, and here is our next one.
Yeah. One thing to note that what's problem some of the cities and counties had is, like, once you've created like a proposal, a project proposal under grants management, then you go back to the dashboard and use the resume buttons you can see there on the right. That's how you go back in and add information and edit things to move through that. If you go back to grants management and click again, you will create you'll create multiple new applications. So, and you do need to make sure that anything that's a current project that needs renewal is showing as a renewal, not as a new. Otherwise, we'll have to help you redo that. So,
yeah. Just for the sake of showing this screen, let me push through this one, throw a bunch of dummy data in
another tactic is, let's say, yes, as you notice, Matt's just putting in some dummy data. If you want to get to a particular section to enter some information to see how it looks, then you can just put in dummy data in the early parts. You're gonna have to go back and fix that and whatnot, but that you may need to do that to be able to save and move forward. Also, make sure any screens that you're on, like if you're halfway done with a screen, go into the other required fields and put like an A or a, TBD or something before you end. Because if you don't fill out all the required fields, what you've already before you need to save and exit, you could lose the data that you've already got in there. We know that's happened to some people. Um, so um,
The reason I was going through this was because I wanted to show you guys this specific screen, prepare for e-signature. This is not the e-sign step. All you're doing here is checking this box that you affirm that all the information contained in, yeah, you can read this whole thing, and then you hit save and finish. You'll need to do this for each project proposal. And you'll get this little application is ready for e-sign, and you'll see some next steps here. So you can also get the download application there and go, but we'll go back to dashboard. And here is where we will get to the summary proposal that you had from last year. You'll see under the in progress tab, send for e-sign. So I'll click on that. I will choose my year. So we'll choose 26. And here you will see all of your projects that you have created. Right now, we only have one that is ready for e-sign. So we'll check this one. If you have created multiple projects, but your agency has decided to only do certain ones of them, this is the check mark of which ones you will be sending. So I'm not going to be sending this draft. I'm just sending this one that I made up. And then I will choose priority 1. If you have multiple, you can change it, priority 1, priority 2. If I'm sending both of them, say this one was ready for e-sign, I can do that. Or you can, if you want to change the priorities, change them there. And then likely you're sending it to your agency head who is not a member of the portal itself. So you will need to click invite new user and put their name in here. It will not actually give them an invitation to the portal itself. It will send it to them as an email, which they'll have an Adobe link in that email, and they can sign the summary proposal. And then you'll see here, send for e-sign and submit. So as soon as they e-sign the summary proposal, it will submit it in the system. If you want to be sure, you can always go to your dashboard and you'll see the status here as submitted after they've signed it.
Yeah, and I think you noticed when Matt went through and got everything in this kind of ready for e-sign status, you could download the application in case you need to have other people that are not in the portal to see it. But you can also do that, as Matt's showing you now up in the upper right-hand corner on any of these screens. You can download wherever the application is in current project. If you need to have other people review that, you can send it out for them to see the content and whatnot. It creates a PDF with a page for each screen that's pretty easy to follow. Looks somewhat similar to applications we've done before. So, and you may see terms like that where you'll see application through here, and we've been using the term proposal. We've tried to separate applications or what cities and counties submit, and proposals or what state agencies submit, but we haven't gotten all the terminology quite straightened out in the portal and trying to get it out and get it usable. But you can consider an application and a project proposal to be interchangeable terms. So thank you, Matt. So with that, I will open it up for questions. You can use the Q&A feature, or you can use the hand raise, and it can allow you to ask a verbal question. So I'll give a minute or so for people to.
Charlie, we had a question from Carolyn Lemire. She asked, can you go back and edit a proposal once you've prepared it for e-signature?
Matt?
You will need to reach out to us to ask us to move it back into the draft status. Once it's been put in the ready for e-sign, that's where it sits and it'll need an edit from us. Quickest way to do that is like if you see here, this one, I'm not sharing, hang on 1 second. So yeah, once it's in this ready for e-sign, to move it back into draft, you'll need to let us know. Best way to do it is to just this communication history, click on this for that particular application. It'll take you to our communications for that, and you can just type in here a post and do the @ symbol and put in my name, Matthew Terrell, employee. And this little tag here will make sure I get an email specifically related to this. And then you can hit share.
Yeah, if you're working on a particular application and you have a question about something in that specific application, this is the best way, and this is going to be our preferred way to do communications. We mentioned the email because sometimes you can't, if you're stuck with something in the system, you maybe can't use this communication function. But this is the best way to get us, and using that @ and whoever you're connected to will help us see that we'll get an email pretty quickly, and it'll tell us to come after it. Check it out. All right, Renee, you can go for it.
Hi, I actually have 2 questions. We are renewing our project. When you get to the project information screen, we are actually requesting more funding this upcoming round. Would I include that in the amending questions? Since we're asking for an increase in funds, is that considered an amendment?
Yes, that would be considered an amendment. So you could address that as part of the amendment questions.
Okay. And my second question is, and we also, in addition to our renewal, we're requesting a new project. So from what I just saw, it looks like we'll have 2 separate. We'll have the renewal and then creation of a new project. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Kathy, go for it.
Hi there. We met with Cindy Newman yesterday. I'm with Virginia Tech, Virginia Cooperative Extension. She's really, really helpful. And so I think I pretty much know what it is we need to do to add a new project. And I believe I have 2 team members on today who are planning to be on. Caitlin Carter, who's with our recovery program at Virginia Tech, and that is the project we'd like to add to the cooperative extension project. So the main question I have, and I'm sure we'll figure it out as we work on it, but it sounded like Caitlin with project 2 will have, once I get registered, which I haven't done yet, I didn't get that done yet, then I can add her as a user and she would populate her project herself. Like I wouldn't have to articulate what she's trying to do.
That's correct. Anyone that you that is a primary or secondary user in the system can add and edit any of the applications. That's one of the reasons, in addition to cost control, that we limit to only 5 per agency or city or county, because it's the people that you want in there actually able to make changes and do things and review and make edits to the process. So yes, anybody that whether it's with your organization or subrecipient, who, it's up to the agency who they want to allow in to do that type of work. But yes, you are correct.
Okay. That is great news. I think that's going to work out really well. And I'm assuming that our signatory will be our director of sponsored programs, which will be the same for both projects. Does it sometimes happen that you have different people who sign for different projects with the same agency?
So you're going to get, because it's one agency proposal, you all have to figure out who the one person is at whatever level of leadership has the authority to sign for that covers all the project proposals you're submitting, because there's only one proposal per. agency, which means only one signature per
Okay,
agency.
I
So,
misinterpreted. I think what Matt was showing us that you choose which thing to send. If we send two projects, there'll still be just one. It'll
yeah.
summarize
So
it and there'll be one to sign.
yes.
Okay.
So if you remember previously, there was a summary of proposal that you'd
Hmm.
fill out with some information, and that's basically what Matt was showing you is you choose which projects you want to submit,
Hmm.
and then and you give them their ranking, and then the system basically populates a form like that and
Hmm.
sets it up so that whoever is the person that needs to sign will sign that one form that
Okay.
covers all projects. And then when that's done, all the projects that were included are considered submitted.
Perfect. That makes a lot of sense. I
Mhm.
just misinterpreted that last thing that Matt was talking
No,
about.
it's all right. All right, no problem. Renee's back. All right. What's up, Renee? Gonna have to unmute or don't need to let you unmute. Has to. There we go.
Oh, no, I'm good. Thank you, though.
Sorry, did you have another question or you're good?
No, I'm good. I'm not sure
Okay.
what happened.
Sorry, my fault. Any other questions? Yes, Kathy.
I just wanted to say thank you for that note, and I still may need help with the because we will have some, hopefully less carry forward requests than last year. So thank you for that note that we added to the budget. I had significant trouble last year where it was trying to take it from what I was requesting for year two. So that's really helpful
Mhm.
that the system, Cindy said it had been the kinks have been worked out a bit, and it sounds like the instructions will keep us from
Yes.
having that trouble.
I won't say we've covered all of them. Cities and counties managed to find or create some for us. So, but we're still trying to refine it and improve it. But it should work much overall. It should work much better than my not so great budget workbooks from last year. So,
We appreciate your initial efforts, and I hear Matt is a whiz, so we really
yep,
appreciate that as well.
very true. So is Sharika. So,
Thank you both.
yep. Thanks, Kathy. Right. A question in the Q&A about are we looking for feedback on the new portal? Sure, absolutely. Feel free to probably that would be something that should be an email to the info@voaa.us. We can't make large scale changes quickly. But as you all are going in, especially those of you that have been working with us since the beginning and working through the various iterations of how we do this, we're happy to have any feedback that we can get. Some of it may be another round before it potentially could be incorporated, but I'm happy to hear. Always want to know if there's things that are causing barriers or problems that we might be able to design to work a little better for everyone. Okay, so another question. So, as a new project, wondering if we get a hard yes or no in response to the submission, or if the response will include recommendations for negotiation changes for parts of the approval. For instance, if VOAA is willing to fund the project but at a lesser amount, is that communicated, or is it just a no and the project won't be funded? So, when the once the you're welcome to chat with us ahead of time, and we can talk about whether or not something might likely be like a hard no from our recommendation or from our grants committee who approves all these. Just because we consult on a project and we're happy to help you get it to its best possible status. That does, because these are competitive awards, doesn't necessarily mean it will or will not be awarded. But if we come back, like as in your example, where it's like, hey, we can maybe fund this part. They'll be, after we get the projects and have a chance to look through them, we will go through and have like some type of, like, usually virtual meetings where we'll talk through what we're seeing, work through any questions. And if there is the potential that, hey, maybe we can only fund part of this, we will definitely have a discussion with that. We don't want to set something up and put a recommendation to our grants committee that then comes back to you all and you go, well, that if we can't actually do anything with this amount of money, we may, in some cases where we've been trying to figure out how to work things in, we've asked for like what I'd call like a buffet, like how much, what's the least amount of money that you can actually do something with? What's your floor? Like, if you give me less than X, I can't really do anything. If you give me Y, I can do these things. If you give me Z, I can do these more things. But that's usually specific to each proposal. So there is definitely will be communication from us. It won't be a proposal is submitted and then the awards are decided at the end. And we'll even plan to have a communication on like what the use that you all will be able to see the basically what the recommendation that we'll be submitting to the grants committee would be, to make sure it accurately reflects what our conversations have been before they go forward. Anything else? Right. Not seeing anything. Appreciate everybody coming on. Like I said, please reach out to us using the communications features in the sorry, excuse me, in the portal. And if you know in a little more detail on how that's used, Matt covered that in that video that from March with training, so you can see things in there. Then if you're struggling with it, just let us know. We're happy to help. Or use the info at voa.us, and one way or another, we'll make sure things get straightened out for you. And thanks again for coming. And there'll be 2 more of these types of sessions later in May as we're leading up to the due date, hopefully to help anybody that needs to work out any last minute questions or any issues. And you don't have to wait for one of these if you're having portal issues. Get those kind of cleared up as quick as you can so you can keep moving forward on things. And with that, thank you very much.